Let us now look at the top stories at this hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi joins celebrations of Durga Puja in West Bengal through video conferencing, extends greetings to everyone, says BJP government in the centre is focusing on Purvoday. India's defence capability gets shot in the arm. Indigenously built anti-submarine warfare stealth corvettes INS Kavaratti, commissioned into the Indian Navy at Visakhapatnam, also completes final user trial of third-generation anti-tank guided missile Nag. Government allows graded relaxation in visa and travel restrictions for all OCI and PIO card holders and all foreign nationals intending to visit India. Restrictions still in place for tourist visas. In poll-bound Bihar, BJP, JDU released their manifestos. Senior BJP leaders to address election rallies. RJD and JDU also campaign in full force. Meanwhile, voting for 8 seats of Bihar Legislative Council underway. Polls for 6th Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Leh polls conclude this is the first democratic exercise post-granting of Union Territory status to the region last year. The voters are using EVMs for the first time in the council polls. And Reserve Bank of India is scheduled to conduct first ever open market operation purchase of state development loans for Rs 10,000 crore. The move will help state governments to borrow money from RBI on interest rates decided via auction process. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi today took part in commencement of Durga Puja celebrations in Kolkata, West Bengal via video conferencing. Later, Prime Minister addressed people of the state, which was telecast at every booth of the state's 294 constituencies, following social distancing norms. PM said, the festival of Durga Puja is a festival that reflects unity and strength of India. It is also a reflection of traditions and culture that comes from Bengal. Prime Minister added that amidst COVID-19, all devotees have shown exemplary restraint during the puja. The number of people might be less, but the grandeur and devotion remains the same. PM also urged everyone to ensure 2 gaj ki duri and wearing of masks during celebrations at all times.
दुर्गा पूजा का पर्व भारत की एकता का पर्व भी है, भारत की पूर्णता का भी पर्व है। बंगाल की दुर्गा पूजा भारत की इस पूर्णता को एक नई चमक देती है, नए रंग देती है, नए श्रृंगार देती है। ये बंगाल की जागरूक चेतना का, बंगाल की आध्यात्मिकता का, बंगाल की ऐतिहासिकता का प्रभाव है।
And Prime Minister also said that the new resolution of becoming self-reliant India in 21st century includes development of West Bengal to its full potential.
21वीं सदी में आत्मनिर्भर भारत का ये नया संकल्प भी बंगाल की धरती से ही मजबूत होगा। हम बंगाल के गौरव को, बंगाल के उद्यम और बंगाल के उद्योग को, यहाँ की समृद्धि और संपन्नता को नई ऊंचाइयों पर पहुंचाना है।
Prime Minister said that continuous work is being undertaken to ensure speedy development of Bengal. Welfare of poor, deprived sections, women are being ensured under various schemes.
साथियों, बंगाल के तेज विकास के लिए, बंगाल के लोगों को मूलभूत सुविधाएं पहुंचाने के लिए निरंतर काम हो रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना के तहत बंगाल में करीब-करीब 30 लाख गरीबों के लिए घर बनाए जा चुके हैं। उज्ज्वला योजना के तहत करीब करीब 90 लाख गरीब महिलाओं को मुफ्त गैस कनेक्शन दिए गए हैं। प्रधानमंत्री जनधन योजना के जरिए बंगाल के लगभग 4 करोड़ गरीबों के बैंक खाते खोले गए हैं। इतना ही नहीं, जल जीवन मिशन योजना के जरिए बंगाल के लगभग 4 लाख घरों में पाइप से साफ पानी पहुंचाना का काम हुआ है।
Prime Minister Modi said women's safety is a priority and therefore laws related to crimes against women have been strengthened like never before.
देश में आज महिलाओं के सशक्तिकरण का भी अभियान तेज गति से जारी है। चाहे बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ अभियान हो या फिर 3 तलाक के खिलाफ कानून, चाहे स्वच्छ भारत के तहत घरों में शौचालय का निर्माण हो या फिर रसोई में धुएं से आजादी, चाहे गहरी खदानों में भी काम करने की स्वीकृति हो या फिर सेना में परमानेंट कमीशन, देश की नारी शक्ति को सशक्त करने के लिए निरंतर काम किया जा रहा है।
Some other news. The last of the 4 indigenously built anti-submarine warfare stealth corvettes INS Kavarati under Project 28 has been commissioned into the Indian Navy by General Manoj Mukund Naravne at Naval Dockyard, Visakhapatnam. Touted as the potent stealth ASW corvette, Kavarati is indigenously designed by Directorate of Naval Design and built by Garden Reach shipbuilders and engineers. It portrays the growing capability of the Indian Navy, GRSE and the nation in becoming self-reliant through indigenization, thus accentuating a national objective of Atmanirbhar Bharat. The ship has been commissioned into the Navy as a combat-ready platform, as the ship has completed sea trials of all systems fitted on board. It is praiseworthy achievement in itself, taking into consideration like restrictions imposed due to the ongoing pandemic.
The country's premier shipyard, EL, other OEMs, ships crew, all under the able stewardship of Eastern Naval Command have risen to the challenges of accomplished readiness of ship systems during these testing times. The commissioning of INS Kavarati therefore marks yet another significant step in securing our country's maritime goals and reaffirms the country's status as a winter's navy.
In a major boost for indigenization in the defense sector, India today successfully carried out first trial of the NAG anti-tank guided missile. The missile was integrated with actual warhead and a tank target was kept at designated range. The weapon system is now ready for induction into the Indian Army. The test was carried out at 6:45 a.m. at Pokhran field firing ranges in Rajasthan. The NAG missile is third generation anti-tank guided missile, which has top attack capabilities that can effectively engage and destroy all known enemy tanks during day and night, ranges of 4 to 7 kilometers. The missile has fire and forget top attack capabilities with passive homing guidance to defeat all MBTs equipped with composite and reactive armor. In view of the situation arising out of COVID-19 pandemic, Government of India has taken series of steps to curtail inward and outward movement of international passengers since February this year. Government has now decided to make a graded relaxation in visa and travel restrictions for more categories of foreign nationals, Indian nationals who wish to enter or leave India. Therefore, it has been decided to permit all OCI and PIO card holders and all other foreign nationals intending to visit India for any purpose except on a tourist visa to enter by air or water routes through authorized airports and seaport immigration checkposts. Now, this includes flights operated under Vande Bharat mission, air transport bubble arrangements or by any non-scheduled commercial flights as allowed by Ministry of Civil Aviation. All such travellers will, however, have to strictly adhere to guidelines of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare regarding quarantine and other health COVID-19 related matters. Under this graded relaxation, Government of India has also decided to restore with immediate effect all existing visas except electronic visa, tourist visa and medical visas. If the validity of such visas has expired, fresh visas of appropriate categories can be obtained from Indian Mission Post Concern. Foreign nationals intending to visit India for medical treatment can apply for medical visa, including for their medical attendants. The BJP today released its manifesto for the upcoming Bihar Assembly elections in Patna. Senior BJP leader and Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, along with other senior leaders, released the poll manifesto in Patna. Speaking to media persons, Sitharaman said, as soon as COVID-19 vaccine will be available for production at a mass scale, every person in Bihar will get free vaccination. She added that this is the first promise mentioned in the party's poll manifesto.
3 ऐसे वैक्सीन भारत देश में प्रोडक्शन के कगार पर आ गए हैं और उसके बाद वो वैक्सीन अगर साइंटिफिक लोग बोलते हैं कि हाँ ये ठीक है, ये अभी प्रोडक्शन कर सकते हैं, प्रोडक्शन करने का कैपेसिटी भी हमारा सरकार के प्रोत्साहन के वजह से रेडी बैठे हैं कि लार्ज प्रोडक्शन करने के लिए। सो जब साइंटिस्ट इसको क्लियर करते हैं, हमारे देश में वैक्सीन का प्रोडक्शन उस लेवल पर होगा जिससे जो
What are we expecting from the 2+2 meet? Are we signing any pact on BECA or maritime? Kadamani from NDTV India has asked. At 2+2 meet in Delhi happening extremely close to US elections, what is India's expectation from it? Suman Sharma has asked, what agreements are likely to be signed during the Indo-US 2+2 dialogue? Vijay Lakshmi from India TV has asked, our expectation from Indo-US 2+2 agreement. Are we expecting some major announcements post-engagement? Parikshit from CNBC has asked, what and how many agreements are we expecting during 2+2? Suhasini from The Hindu has asked, please tell us about the agenda for 2+2 dialogue next week. US Secretary of State Pompeo said he will discuss ways to counter challenge from the CCP and China. Does India intend to discuss Chinese actions at LAC with the US? Is the visit of US officials a week before elections unusual? Could it not have been rescheduled until after the results? Will BECA be signed during the visit? Brahma Prakash from Z has asked, भारत और अमेरिका के बीच जो 2+2 वार्ता होने जा रही है, उसमें क्या चीन के साथ टकराव की स्थिति पर भी चर्चा होगी? Sandeep Dixit from Tribune has asked, will 2+2 talks with US on October 27 also cover India's concern about the trade squeeze and narrowing of employment prospects of Indian in the US? Siddhant from Vion has asked, what will be the key focus of 2+2? Nivedita Mukherjee from Financial Express has asked, is there an economic agenda in coming 2+2 meeting between India and US? Similar question has also been asked by Madhurendra from News Nation.
Okay, so these questions essentially I think cover the agenda, the expectations, the likely outcomes, agreements to be signed, etc. To respond to these questions, let me start with going back to the announcement that we made last evening that we would be hosting the third India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue on the 27th of October. And for this dialogue, the US Secretary of State, Michael Pompeo, and the Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, will be visiting India on the 26th and 27th of October. RM and EM would be leading the delegations from the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of External Affairs respectively for this dialogue. Just to give you some background, the previous two dialogues were held in New Delhi in September 2018 and in Washington DC in December 2019. The discussions in these dialogues have enabled both sides to further progress the bilateral relationship as well as strengthen the institutional framework for cooperation across all sectors. And you would know that India and the US have a comprehensive global strategic partnership, and this partnership includes political, security and defense, economic, commercial, technology and people-to-people contacts. And we've been having regular dialogues at various levels to discuss ongoing bilateral cooperation as well as to exchange views on developments in the region and in the world. The third ministerial dialogue will similarly entail a comprehensive discussion on cross-cutting bilateral issues of mutual interest. In addition, both sides will also exchange views on regional and international issues. As regards other engagements of the secretaries, that is Secretaries Esper and Pompeo, during the visit, they will have bilateral meetings with their counterparts. They will also be meeting NSA. There will be a joint call on PM. Coming to your questions on specific outcomes and agreements, I would request you to be patient at this moment. I would not like to prejudge the outcomes, but what I can tell you is that we will keep you briefed as it happens. As regards the timing of the meeting, you would know that diplomatic calendars have their logic, and you will notice that the earlier two meetings have also been held towards the end of the year. On the questions on the points of discussions, as I mentioned, this is a comprehensive global strategic partnership, and under this partnership, discussions cover all salient regional and global issues. So therefore, I would not like to focus on a single issue.
Shakil Akhtar from BBC has asked, Pakistan says that Indian border forces arrest or shoot men and even children who mistakenly cross the line of control. What is your comment on these allegations? He has also asked, Pakistan also denies Indian allegations that these men who are arrested while crossing the border are either militants Pakistan tried to infiltrate or helpers for the actual militants. To support the claim, Pakistan says infiltration is not possible due to fence border. What is your comment on Pakistan's denial?
I'm glad you've asked about infiltrations by Pakistan across the border. See, Pakistan forces have continued to engage in unprovoked ceasefire violations, and often these violations happen from civilian areas to support infiltration of terrorists across the LOC. This is a clear violation of the 2003 ceasefire understanding between the two sides. In terms of numbers, what I can tell you is this year till date, Pakistani forces have carried out 3,800 unprovoked ceasefire violations. There have also been attempts to drop arms and ammunition across the LOC in the garb of civilian activities. We have also witnessed that Pakistan's aid and abetment to cross-border terrorism, smuggling of arms and narcotic substances has spilled over to the international boundary, including through usage of drones and quadcopters. Such violations are regularly highlighted to Pakistan through diplomatic channels and at the regular DGMO level meetings.
Kamaljeet from Aaj Tak has asked, what does India expect from ongoing FATF plenary session? Has Pakistan, according to India, lived up to its commitments on action plan obligations? Nainima from The Print has asked, tomorrow is the FATF plenary final day. Is India hopeful that Pakistan will be blacklisted?
So you would know that FATF has well laid out standards and procedures for putting a country on its black list and its grey list. After a country is put on a list, an action plan is given to it, and the country is expected to fulfill the action plan within a stipulated time frame, of course. Those found wanting in implementing their obligations are held accountable and they are subjected to appropriate action. Now, in the case of Pakistan, it is understood that Pakistan has addressed only 21 action items so far out of the total 27 action items given to them under their action plan. 6 important action items are yet to be addressed. As is well known, Pakistan continues to provide safe havens to terrorist entities and individuals, and it has also not taken any action against several terrorist entities and individuals, including those who have been proscribed by the UNSC, such as Masood Azhar, Dawood Ibrahim and Zakirur Rahman Lakhvi. So the issue of Pakistan's compliance is being looked at the ongoing plenary, which I understand will get over on the 23rd of this month. And FATF makes public announcements of its decisions according to its rules and procedures after its plenary meetings.
Kalol from the Hindu has asked, Indian High Commissioner Vikram Doraiswamy met State Minister of Bangladesh for Water Resource Zahid Farooq on Wednesday in Dhaka. He also met Railway Minister Nurul Islam Sujan. Can you please share details of these two meetings? When will India and Bangladesh hold Joint River Commission meeting? Will it be held before the summit meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Hasina?
Kalol, you know that our new High Commissioner has taken charge, and as is the practice, he is having his courtesy calls and meetings with ministers and officials in Bangladesh, and during these meetings bilateral issues of interest are being discussed. Regarding your question on the JRC, which is the Joint Railway Committee, you would know that during the recently held Joint Consultative Committee meeting between the two foreign ministers, the two foreign ministers urged the concerned authorities to consider convening the ministerial level JRC meeting between the two countries. And as of now, I understand that both sides are currently in discussion on this.
Akhilesh Suman from Rajya Sabha TV has asked, UN Day is on 24th October. How are you going to commemorate this day? Do you think United Nations is able to serve the realities of today's world, and if not, what is needed to be done? Will India on this occasion ask the member nations to reform the UN and its Security Council, and what are India's preparations for that?
Akhilesh, you would know that this year marks the 75th year anniversary of the United Nations, and to commemorate this occasion, UN had an event, a high-level event last month, where PM participated, and I think in his address you would have seen that. I quote from there, which pretty much answers your question. He underscored that while the world is a better place because of the United Nations and much has been achieved, today's challenges can't be fought with outdated structures, and comprehensive reform of the UN is needed. In terms of activities, as a special initiative, tomorrow to mark this occasion, Department of Posts will be releasing a stamp. This is tomorrow, which is on the eve of the founding of the UN, and the stamp release will be in the presence of EM, who is the chief guest on the occasion. This event will be live streamed, and we invite all of you to join us on the occasion. On the issue of reforms of the UN Security Council and our preparations for the same, you are aware that India attaches the highest priority to the expansion of the Security Council in both its categories, which is the permanent and the non-permanent category, so that it reflects contemporary realities of the world. And even in our upcoming innings as a non-permanent member, which begins in 2021, reformed multilateralism is a key pillar of our overall approach, and we aim to make a decisive push in this regard along with like-minded partners.
Siddhant from WION has asked, Atanur was in India. He spoke with EM and Foreign Secretary. How were the talks? And speaking to WION, he said India should sit with Taliban. Any reaction?
Siddhant, on Afghan leader Atanur's visit, he was here yesterday. He met EM and FS, and during the meetings, views were exchanged on the current situation in Afghanistan, including on the ongoing peace process and the increasing level of violence in Afghanistan. We reiterated our long-term commitment towards the reconstruction and development of Afghanistan.
Next set of question is on LAC. Kadambini from NDTV India has asked, any update on LAC situation? Brahma Prakash from Z has asked, चीन के साथ सीमा पर जो विवाद की स्थिति है, उसको लेकर क्या अगले दौर की वार्ता की तारीख तय हो गई है, और आखिर क्या वजह है कि सीमा विवाद सुलझ नहीं पा रहा? Ranjit Kumar from Rakshat News has asked, can you report any progress in the ongoing negotiations between India and China on troops disengagement and de-escalation in the border areas of eastern Ladakh? Shrinjoy from Times Now has asked, has there been any changes on the ground in East Ladakh, particularly with reference to the drawdown of armored vehicles? Shashidhar Pathak from Amar Ujala has asked, भारत और चीन के बीच लद्दाख में सीमा विवाद को लेकर क्या संभावना है? चीन भारत के शांतिपूर्ण पहल पर क्यों ध्यान नहीं दे रहा है? क्या मामले है समाधान के लिए शीर्ष स्तर के राजनीतिक नेतृत्व के हस्तक्षेप की आवश्यकता की महसूस की जा रही है? Similar question by Madhurendra from News Nation and Mukesh Kaushik from Dainik Bhaskar.
Look, as you are aware, India and China have continued to have discussions through both diplomatic and military channels to peacefully resolve the issues along the LAC in the India-China border areas. This is in keeping with the agreement reached between the two foreign ministers during their meeting in Moscow on the 10th of September 2020. The immediate task is to ensure a comprehensive disengagement of troops in all the friction areas. In this context, the 19th meeting of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination in the India-China border areas, that is the WMCC, this was held on the 30th of September 2020. And this was followed by the 7th meeting of the senior commanders in Chushul on 12th of October. The two sides have reiterated their desire to maintain dialogue and communication through military and diplomatic channels and arrive at a mutually acceptable solution for disengagement as early as possible. We continue to remain engaged with the Chinese side, and we will let you know when there is further information to share.
Balaram from Mathrubhumi has asked, 286 Indians returned from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Bihar, UP and Odisha have approached MEA and Indian Embassy in Saudi Arabia regarding non-payment of end of service by a private employer. What is the status of said complaints? What steps are being taken by MEA for dealing with such grievances by Indian migrant laborers returning from foreign countries? Is there any negotiation with host countries, especially GCC countries, to deal with grievances of non-payment of salary, end of service benefits, etc. to Indian migrants by foreign employer?
Mr. Balaram, all such cases, including the case that you mentioned of 286 Indian workers who are working for an Indian company in Saudi Arabia, are raised by our missions in these countries with employers as well as local authorities. And in this particular case, what I can tell you is that this has been followed up by our embassy, and we are hopeful for a positive resolution. As regards your other question on what steps are being taken, we have a portal called the Madad portal, where all such cases, people who are affected, they can register their grievances, and our missions and posts in these areas, in these regions, proactively follow it up with concerned authorities to get a resolution.
Sandeep Dikshit from Tribune has asked, can you elaborate on India's South Korea ties in the context of conversation between our Prime Minister and South Korean President, preceded by interactions between the ambassadors and respective foreign secretaries?
Sandeep, you would know that India and ROK share a special partnership which spans a whole range of areas. And this relationship has made great strides in recent years, particularly since the visit of PM to ROK in 2015. And this relationship has become truly multidimensional. It is spurred by a significant convergence of interests, of mutual goodwill, and through high-level visits. Just to give you a flavor of high-level visits, in the last 2 years, both sides had several of such visits. President Moon visited India in July 2018. First Lady Kim was here in November 2018. PM visited Seoul in February 2019. And even this year, despite the COVID-19 situation, we have maintained high-level communication. PM and President Moon have had 2 telephonic conversations. One was in April and the other most recently was yesterday. EM had a DVC with his counterpart in May 2020 to take forward bilateral cooperation. So in these conversations, the two sides have exchanged views on the COVID-19 situation, the challenges it poses to the global health system, and as well as the ongoing diversification of the international value chain. So this is essentially in terms of the discussions during these calls. Are there any further questions?
No, sir.
Thank you. So this concludes this briefing.